In this video, I'm going to show you how to install Google Analytics with Google Tag Manager. So, why do you need analytics on your website to begin with? It's to measure what website visitors are doing on your website and trying to see if those actions, if those user actions are leading to a business objective. So that could be any sort of sales opportunity like a call to your business, a form submission to get an offer, a form submission to contact you. So we need to get that laid out and installed before you do anything. Before I work with any client, that's a requirement. Otherwise, any other subsequent action campaign is pretty much useless because then you're just kind of shooting darts in the dark. Okay, so what are you going to need in order to make this happen? Of course, we're going to need a Google Analytics account, a Google Tag Manager account, and then access to your website to install Google Tag Manager. And there are different ways to install Google Analytics. There's different flavors of Google Analytics. There's gtag.js, that's the legacy one. Google is no longer supporting that or adding features. There's analytics.js, which is the one that I recommend. So that's the universal analytics. And then there's this gtag.js, and that's becoming kind of like the default way to install analytics on your website. So I'm going to explain why it's better to use Google Tag Manager as the implementation method of using Google Analytics rather than gtag. And number one, it gives you the flexibility to install all kinds of different tracking tools. So imagine you're doing like Facebook ads and you want to install the Facebook tracking pixel on your website. You could do that with Google Tag Manager. You can't do that with gtag. With gtag, you are only allowed to integrate with Google related products. So that's a huge limitation. Number two, there's a simple UI, which is great for non-techies to do some of this technical type of work. So a huge one is the constraint of having a developer to have to make any additions or edits to code on the website. So with Google Tag Manager, you install it once, and then from there you use their interface to install other types of tags, which is awesome. With gtag, it's code essentially, and if you want to, it's pretty simple, but it requires you to actually mess around with the code, and then that just kind of leaves opportunity to break things. So that's I think that's a huge disadvantage for most non-techie types. And then thirdly, it's vendor agnostic. Google Tag Manager, even though it's a Google product, it works with any other tag out there. gtag does not. So now I'm going to jump into how I would install Google Analytics with Google Tag Manager on my website. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump over to Google Tag Manager, create an account, and then hop over to Google Analytics, and then go from there. So let's hop over to Tag Manager. I've already gone into my account just to kind of save some time. So if you don't have an account already set up, go to tagmanager.google.com and you can create an account within a couple of minutes. And then from there, what you want to do is hop over to admin, go to install Google Tag Manager, and then put this in the as high up in the head element of your page as possible. So the implementation could be different depending on what kind of website you have. You might have like a CMS like WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or something like that. I'm using a static site generator, which is just kind of like, old-fashioned like HTML types of pages. So the implementation might be a little bit different based on your situation, or there's also the possibility of using like a plugin or something like a lot of WordPress implementation. So anyway, so you'll put this piece of code in as high up on the head element as possible, and then grab this one in case somebody like shuts off JavaScript by default on their browser. We are still able to track them with this pixel, and that is after the opening body tag. So once you throw that onto your website, then you can go to your workspace and create a tag. So what kind of tag are we going to create? We are going to create this Google Analytics Universal Analytics tag type. And so if you haven't created an analytics account, I suggest you go do that now. So go to analytics.google.com and then jump over to your admin section, go under property, go to tracking code, and then grab this code here, hop back to Google Tag Manager, and then create this as a variable. If we want it to trigger on all pages, save that. And then what we want to do is once that's all set up, you have your Google Tag Manager account, you've installed it on your website, you've created a Google Analytics account, you grab that tracking ID, you've plugged it in here to Tag Manager. So you're not done yet. You actually have to submit your changes, and this kind of this is something that I typically forget to do, so don't forget to do it. So here you could put something like install GA tag and put whatever you want in here. So once it's published, it should take a few seconds for that to happen. What I would suggest doing is having a look, because I like to just see real numbers populate because it makes me happy. Go to real-time overview, and then from here, go to your website. So here's my website. I'm going to refresh the page. I'm going to go back to analytics, and then I should see a hit come in a second. Okay, cool. So that means it's working. Another way to see if the implementation has been installed correctly is to have a look at the page source. So if you go to the dev tools, look at the view source or page source for some browsers, and then you'll see the actual script up here, and with your container ID and all that fun stuff. So that is how you install Google Analytics with Google Tag Manager. I highly suggest for you to implement it that way. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'll do my best to try to get to them. And I kind of sped up through this, so and everyone's situation is a bit different. So I don't have like a Squarespace account. There's some kind of bug flying around here. There's a bunch of different implementations, Wix, Squarespace, WordPress. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer. If not, refer you to the right direction. And happy tracking.